Good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. It's July 10th, 2025. I'm going to call the business meeting of the Governing Board of the South Florida Water Management District to order. First on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Butler, would you like to lead us in the pledge? If you could all stand and face the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, thank you, Ben. Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you here. Vice Chair Wagner's not going to be able to join us today. Mr. Bergeron, Mr. Martinez, Mr. Spotswood, and Mr. Steinley are all participating remotely. Let's see, Mr. Bergeron, are you on? Just going to do a quick mic check for everybody.
He's pulling in right now.
Okay, Mr. Martinez?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm here.
Good morning, Mr. Spotswood?
Good morning, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. And Mr. Steinley?
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. We'll check back on Ron in a second. And for those members who are here, I'm going to ask you to make sure your microphone is on and that you please speak into the mic so the online attendees can hear you. For those board members who are on Zoom, I can't see you when you raise your hands. If you want to speak or ask a question, please just call out your name and I'll acknowledge you and allow you to speak. Members of the public on Zoom who wish to address the board can use the raise your hand feature. If members of the public are having any trouble and need help, please go to our website, sfwmd.gov, and click the Ask Us button at the top of the page, and staff will help you out. If you're using a phone and you'd like to comment, press *9 to raise your hand, *6 to mute and unmute. As a courtesy to others who wish to speak, members of the public are asked to comment only once on a topic. We'll take public comment first from those who are here in person and submitted a comment card, and that'll be followed by those with raised hands on Zoom. And now we're going to go to employee recognitions, if y'all could join me in the well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our July 2025 Employee of the Month is Mike Kirkland, Lead Invasive Biologist and Land Resources. So, July 11th kicks off this year's Python Challenge, and when you're at the Water Management District and you're thinking Python, you can't help but think of Mike Kirkland because he is the guy. He's the go-to guy. He's our public face. He's the one that takes care of, nurtures, and guides this whole Python program at the South Florida Water Management District from its inception at the South Florida Water Management District. This may surprise folks, but Mike did not come to the South Florida Water Management District to do the Python program. He came in 2010 into our vegetation management and the hazard tree management team, and then he moved over to invasive management. But in 2017 was when he was entrusted to manage and run our Python program, which includes research and removal of pythons. And to this day, he's been doing it all these years, and at this point, he's got 54 hunters out there removing pythons in our South Florida ecosystem. And since 2019, if you look at all the numbers across all the agencies, 15,800 pythons have been removed, and the district's done the majority of those. So, and that's because of Python's leadership and his engagement with these 54 hunters out there in the field removing pythons. And because they do that at night, and because we're open in the day, he doesn't sleep. Mike does not sleep. He is doing pythons 24/7, a very, very busy guy. But he's also very much our face on the district. So he's been on podcasts, interviews. He's always out there representing the district when it comes to python removal. And he's just got this commitment to public service and getting the job done, which is creating the success. And if you look at the numbers as we see today, we are significantly outpacing python removal compared to all the other efforts going on out there to remove pythons. And that's because Mike and his great relationship and his great management. And that's why he's our July Employee of the Month. Thank you, Mike. Our July 2025 Team of the Month is the G404 Pump Station Repowering Team, which consists of Joel Arietta, Adam Buzian, John Garrett, Thomas Gary, Gregory Mathis, Ricardo Medina, Dragomir Mitev, Jason Parrish, Nancy Pino, Justin Redondo, Christopher Ruman, Orelvis Ruiz, Ryan Spooner, Robert Van Valkenburg, and Dwight Willis. So we have a lot of pump stations out there, and we have a lot of them that need to be rebuilt. And G404 is one of those. And while every pump station is critical, this one is critical because it is the one that is used to move water, not only into the Water Conservation Area 3A, but over to the Big Cypress Reservation of the Seminole Tribe. So they depend on this pump station for water supply, which is obviously critically important for their efforts. And this was built in 2000, and it's reaching its end of life, and so it needed to be rebuilt. The interior, the works to keep these pumps going needed to be rebuilt, and the scope of this project went well beyond just engine replacement. So they basically coordinated, this team coordinated the removal of the original engines and installation of 3 state-of-the-art engines, but there's more, right? Because they had to install a redundant loop water system, replace the original 3 keel coolers, integrate the 3 additional keel coolers completely with all necessary piping, install the 3 new fuel coolers, replace the main control panel, including integration of the remote terminal unit for enhanced remote operational capabilities, and completion of all supporting conduit and electrical wiring throughout the station. I know you guys know what keel coolers are, but this was a complex project that took a lot of moving parts and a lot of folks from both the Clewiston Field Station and the Fort Lauderdale Station to make it all work, because it takes this kind of team to do this kind of effort. On top of that, if we were to contract this out, $1.6 million, this team and their efforts and collaboration pulled it together for $1.2 million, saving us $400,000, which is good money to go to that next project, right? And so we love to see that. We love to see the accomplishment. And now we have this rebuilt pump station that is a symbol of what we can do, the ingenuity that we have at the South Florida Water Management District, particularly with the capabilities of our field stations. So congratulations to the G404 repowering team. Yeah, what, he needs to do.
Want to slide over some? We need to slide over some.
That's all right.
I know exactly what it is now.
There you go.
Everybody miss anything?
No, I think we're good. One.
Nope.
All right, there you go.
We fail it here, we don't know that.
All right. We do have a 35-year service award today. That is with Jose Otero, Section Administrator in Division of Ecosystem Restoration. Let me talk about him. So, Jose, basically, 35 years ago, Jose got his Master's of Science degree in Water Resources Engineering at the George Washington University. And I imagine it was I just checked, it was in March of that year where Pat, his wife, suggested that he applied to a job in South Florida with the South Florida Water Management District, which he did, and he came down and got this job in 1990 as basically an entry-level engineer in hydrodata and data management as an entry-level engineer. So he's done a lot in his 35 years. So I'm going to go through that list. But his first thing was really putting together what we call the flow program that calculates the flow based on all the data at all the structures and pump stations, integrate that into DB Hydro so we can, as we do today, know what is flowing and how much is flowing at all of our stations and structures and everywhere. But then he went into this modeling effort where he he basically did the modeling for the St. Lucie Estuary to look at how much storage was needed to protect the St. Lucie Estuary, which we still use today when we're putting together our plans. And then he actually moved over and built and worked on the regional model for the Lake Okeechobee regulation schedule that was established in 1994. These are big things, right? And then he worked also, because he never rests, but on water quality projects for Lake Okeechobee. So he basically put together the phosphorus loading analysis to work on those projects, which underpin partnerships with landowners, and also the design of the Taylor Creek Nubbin Slough STAs, which he worked with the Corps to get those put in the ground. And then there's more. He worked on the first ever effort to put the modeling together for the Lake Okeechobee Watershed Restoration Plan. The very first time that was done, because it's been coming and going, but he was there from the get-go to put that CERT project together. And then he shifted over to operations in the the Indian River Prairie Basin. That's the whole basin which interacts with the Brighton Reservation of the Seminole Tribe. So he put together the water budget and the operational plans for those canals to make sure that there is water supply integration with the Seminole Tribe. And then he decided it was time to co-manage the Integrated Interagency Modeling Center, we call it the IMC, which is all the modeling done for SERP. And so he was there processing, while he was there, 350 different requests to do the SERP planning projects for the district and the Corps. And then he got into the operational plans with operational hydraulics and worked with managers in the Everglades group in the conservation area and the Alley North modeling effort and flow effort to take care of the Alley North colony. And then he went ahead and worked on the operations plans for the Brighton Valley dispersed water management, Alico projects, and other projects around Lake Okeechobee, because those have to be developed and implemented through permitting. And then, because, he was bored maybe, I don't know, he decided to take on the Restoration Strategies program from the get-go in 2018, where he saw that through to last year when we finished the construction phase of that incredible project. 13 different projects, 6,000 acres, 115,000 acre feet of storage to put clean water in the Everglades. But he wasn't done with the SDAs because he also oversaw the execution of all of our refurbishments that we've been doing to get these SDAs ready for next year's QBEL. A lot of work. So we decided to put him in charge of the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program and all the projects, and that happened this year, right, in 2025. So now he's in that section supervising the execution of all these different projects in the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection. So he has been very busy during his 35 years. His wife is here. He does have 2 daughters as well. He loves spending time with his family, traveling, likes to build large Lego sets, so he's still got that kid in him, and solving math puzzles, and he's a ardent soccer fan. He may call it football, but we all call it soccer. But he also has 2 daughters. One of them, Fabiano Otero, is very proud of him, I can tell, because he recently did for us a CNN in Spanish interview about the EAA and the Everglades, all the work we're doing for the EAA Reservoir Project and putting clean water in the Everglades. And so it was a great interview, and his daughter posted it on her LinkedIn and said, and she's in the sustainability business, and she said, "This is my origin story. It's my dad." So great story, great guy. Thank you so much, Jose, for your 35 years of service.
And Megan told me I have to give you a hug because she's at the airport.
Thanks, Drew. That's incredibly impressive. Molly, we'll go to item 4, which is agenda revisions. Do you have any changes to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Consent agenda item number 14 was removed at the request of the proposed lessee.
Thank you. Agenda item 5 is abstentions by board members. I'm going to poll you all to see if you have any abstentions, and I'm going to start with Mr. Butler to my right. Do you have any abstentions?
No, sir, no abstentions.
Thank you. I do not have any. Colonel Roman?
I have none.
Mr. Hurley?
I have none.
Thank you. Now I'm going to try and remember who's online here. Here he is. Mr. Bergeron?
Have none.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
None.
Thank you. Mr. Spotswood?
None.
Thank you. And Mr. Steinley?
None.
Thank you very much. We'll have the Big Cypress Basin report now, and the chair of the Big Cypress Basin is Colonel Rowan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a report of the July 7th Big Cypress Basin Board meeting. We began our meeting with an update from the Basin Administrator, Lisa Keeler, who provided an overview of several key capital projects within the basin. She also shared the exciting news of the startup of the Miller Pump Station, the final pump station to come online as part of the Picayune Strand Restoration Project. Dr. Carolina Moran followed with a presentation on water and climate risk assessments used to support resiliency planning in Southwest Florida. She noted that the 2025 sea level rise and flood vulnerability plan is currently being updated and will include project recommendations for the Big Cypress Basin based on the latest data and risk metrics. Next, Michael Kirkland introduced the Python Elimination Program and discussed ongoing research to enhance python management in the Everglades. His presentation highlighted efforts in the Picayune Strand Wildlife Management Area, Fakahatchee Strand Preserve State Park, and other locations throughout the Big Cypress Basin region. Finally, Candy Heater presented the basin's fiscal year 2025-2026 final millage and budget for approval. The board approved the continued millage rate of .0978 mils for fiscal year 2025-2026, requesting that the governing board to levy the ad valorem taxes within the Big Cypress Basin. And the board approved submitting the fiscal year 2025-2026 basin budget in the amount of $22,247,748 to the governing board for approval and inclusion in the district's budget. We closed our meeting with technical and staff reports, and our next meeting is Friday, August 22nd at 11 a.m. That concludes my report, Mr. Chair, subject to any questions.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have the approval of the minutes for the June 5th, 2025 meeting. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes for the June 5th meeting? Can I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thanks.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Charlotte?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez? Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez? Last chance, thanks. That passes unanimously. Now we'll move to the Executive Director's Report with Mr. Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Got a few items for you today. First of all, the state budget was signed, and so it is in effect, and it is also very significant with what we got coming to invest in Florida's environment. $664 million for CERP projects, $81 million for Northern Everglades and Estuaries protection projects, $235 million for land management at the Water Management District. And then statewide, the $200 million more for resiliency and $50 million for alternative water supply. Now, the CERP projects that this supports, the $664 million, includes the EAA Reservoir Project, the Central Everglades Planning Project, Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands, Lake Okeechobee Watershed, Caloosahatchee C-43 Reservoir, Indian River Lagoon South Reservoirs, Western Everglades, the Loxahatchee Project, and C-111 South Dade. A lot of projects in this budget, and we're very grateful that the governor and the legislature has empowered us to make great progress on this project. Speaking of progress, we had a milestone happen over at the Picayune Strand project. And I think this was at the end of June. Charlotte Roman was joined, we got a slide up here. We got Charlotte Roman was joined by our partners at the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, including Major Corey Bell, to celebrate the startup of the Miller Pump Station. That's the last pump station. It's the westernmost pump station that is now in operation for the Picayune Strand project. And let's go to the next slide because let's see what that looks like. So that is the startup of the pumps right before it started up on the left-hand side, and that's after 10 days of pumping. And you can see the difference that makes. And this is what Everglades restoration is about, because all that water would normally go out to the coast and just get discharged through canals. And so this is not only moving the water to where it wants to go, but it's providing flood control for all those canals and communities, moving that water to a better location. So this is what all of Everglades restoration kind of embodies itself. And now you're seeing results, and it's very exciting. And we look forward to celebrating a ribbon cutting on that probably later this year, but shortly. And by the way, the Corps of Engineers did a fantastic job. I mean, honestly, our predecessors did a fantastic job getting all the land put together and getting the pump stations built. But the Corps really mobilized really excellent resources to put this project in overdrive and get it done, and to put us in a position to have it be done later this year. Thank you, Molly. I want to give you a Southland Reservoir update. We are still awaiting a submission from Phillips and Jordan on their response to our criteria to update the package so that we can start our review. They did have until August 27th, so that review really hasn't started. You'd be interested because on the DEP permit side, they had issued their intent to issue the permit. There are a number of interested parties that asked for more time in order to give them the ability to file a petition on the permit. So DEP did grant an extension of 45 days for them to engage in that permit, and that goes until August 11th to file their petition. So that's kind of where that project stands right now. We talk frequently about the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program. And I know there's discussion, and we want to do some public engagement and some board engagement to bring the other two agencies as part of this effort to have a public discussion on it, which includes DEP and FDACS. And so right now, there is a public workshop. We do a public workshop with the three agencies, and that is scheduled for late September, targeting September 26th. And so that's where we'll do our public engagement and do a public workshop on Northern Everglades. And around that same time, when we have all the materials together, that's when we also plan to hopefully bring the other two agencies down to have a conversation with the board about that. And what we want to do is couple that with a solicitation we actually have out on the street right now for the Caloosahatchee watershed. So we're soliciting other project ideas in that watershed for funding. And so we'll get those responses, be able to review those, and hopefully couple that with the meeting with the board this fall to really talk about NEEP and make some decisions at the same time. All right. And then the last thing I have for you is some exciting news, in my opinion. So in December, you authorized Cape Sable funding a Cape Sable seaside sparrow captive breeding program to keep that species going and set us up for restoration. Unfortunately, this year, when they did the sparrow surveys, there was a significant decline in the number that they counted in the sparrows, so this is becoming increasingly important. We had thought about using white oak for the captive breeding program. That didn't work out, but we did find a partner in that, and that is Zoo Miami, which seems just like an excellent opportunity for us. Zoo Miami is in the area, it's in South Florida, and they do captive breeding, and this is another species they've agreed to take on and partner with us on that breeding program, which is very exciting for us. So look forward to that starting up and us taking care of that business. That's all I got for you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks. Does anyone have any questions or comments for Executive Director Bartlett? Nope. Thanks, Drew. We'll go now to general public comment. We'll go into our first public comment period. If you're here to comment on a specific agenda item, I think there's one of them, we ask that you hold your comment until we reach that item on our agenda. This comment period is for general comments not related to agenda items. Public comments for consent are that's item 12 on the agenda, and public comment for discussion is item 21. That'll be heard after the presentation. The public did have an opportunity to provide written comments prior to this meeting. We did not receive any e-comments on this. Is there general public comment now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. We'll hear first from Newton Cook, followed by Gil Smart.
Newton Cook, United Waterfowlers. Just learned my whole speech here, Drew. Cape Sable seaside sparrow. Are we going to continue to let the Cape Sable seaside sparrow destroy everything between here and Orlando? If we don't get the water running through these areas where there's no birds, every year that goes by, we destroy the WCAs, we destroy the lake, we destroy the St. Lucie, we destroy the Caloosahatchee, and because you can't put any water in the lake, everything north of there can be too high. Until the water can flow south, as it has always historically flowed south from the lake to Florida Bay without any restrictions, high water during storms, naturally, drought during droughts, naturally, as long as we allow a bird that can't find it. Populations disappeared, and we destroy millions of acres, 1 million acres about, of lakes and forests. It's got to be fixed, or 30 years from now, we'll be standing here doing the same thing. I actually got up to say thank you very much for everyone that came to the recreation meeting. We had a great turnout, filled the room, standing room only, and long list of Zoom people. And I just want to say how much we appreciate the district's commitment to help the recreation. It's been an incredible experience, and the number of governing board members who show up and the officers here who show up is very much appreciated by everyone. Scott Martin came in, made a nice presentation on the condition of the lake. We're very happy the lake has been low now for some time. And we hope we get a gentle rise from the local rain this year. And there is a small amount of vegetation starting to grow, but it will take at least 5 years of what we call recover to get back where we were before Irma. A lot of new opportunities across the district for recreation, and I want to thank the staff. I think nothing can happen without the staff, and the staff here is just incredibly cooperative. We deal with several water management districts. I wish I could say that, but it's incredible cooperative staff here. And that's one reason why the PR from Orlando all the way to the Keys is so high for the Water Management District and the opportunities it offers. Falconry was our stakeholder. We always found a good one, like Sky Watchers, Star Watchers. But falconry was the stakeholder presentation, and we all learned something about how difficult that thing is to do. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll hear next from Gil Smart, followed by Caitlin Newcamp.
Good morning, governing board members. My name is Gil Smart. I'm policy director with Friends of the Everglades, founded in 1969 by Marjorie Snowman Douglas and headquartered in Stewart. Here to say the Everglades are in trouble, but luckily you're in a position to do something about it. You're surely aware of the immigrant detention center called Alligator Alcatraz that was built in 8 days on the side of the old Big Cypress Swamp Jetport without any environmental assessment as required by federal law. Recent aerial photos show parts of the site have been filled and paved, roads have been added and expanded, and the once dark night sky is now lit up like a football stadium. National parks like Everglades National Park have been called America's best idea, but this mass detention center in the heart of the Everglades is surely one of America's worst ideas. We'd like to thank the Bergeron Everglades Foundation for speaking out against this. I would urge the rest of you to do the same should you have the opportunity. Then there's Big Sugar's rock mine, which continues to move through your approval process. Actually, we heard it hasn't even really started. As you may be aware, last week the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Colonel Bowman responded to Congressman Brian Mast and acknowledged that the Corps has several questions about the Southland project, including questions about water management, seepage, water availability, and more. As Congressman Mast noted on social media, this was the Army Corps, quote, saying the quiet part out loud, that this proposed mine threatens everything we've been working towards with the EAA reservoir. We can't let political favors sabotage decades of progress. We agree entirely and hope that you too will continue to ask tough questions as this progresses through your approval process. Finally, we've been following the recent modeling efforts for the CEP 1.0 Water Management Plan, which is to replace the Combined Operational Plan, or COP, and we've grown increasingly concerned that the district, in its concept C2C, seems more focused on optimizing water flow than restoring historic Everglades flows. The targets and modeling results in concept C2C suggest lower unnatural water depths for the ridge and slough landscape in Everglades National Park. We fear this could have significant impacts and flies in the face of stated CEP and SERP restoration goals of re-wetting the park and substantially increasing freshwater flows to Florida Bay. We urge you to stand firm with the goals of restoration of a flowing, re-wetted Everglades, one that brings new fresh water to Florida Bay. That's always been our understanding of how restoration was supposed to work. Let's not move the goalposts now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Smart. We'll hear next from Caitlin Newcamp, followed by Mark Perry.
Good morning, Chair and board members, and thank you for the opportunity to comment. Caitlin Newcamp with Audubon, Florida. So we really want to commend the announcement of the Zoo Miami joining the effort to support the conservation breeding program for the Cape Sable seaside sparrow. This is a very important and positive step towards safeguarding the critically imperiled species, which continues to face major habitat and hydrologic challenges in the wild, evidenced by its steep decline in population numbers over the past few years. Audubon, Florida has been involved in Cape Sable seaside sparrow protection since the species was listed in the 1960s and has been advocating for habitat protection, science-based water management, and Everglades restoration to support its recovery. So we are here to celebrate and to remind everyone that conservation breeding should not be seen as a replacement for ecosystem restoration, yet it can serve as a vital last resort strategy to save a species while we continue to address the root causes of the decline, especially water management and habitat degradation. We urge the district to continue prioritizing hydrologic improvements in the sparrow's habitat and ensure that operations under the Combined Operational Plan and the multi-year deviation coming up fully account for the sparrow's conservation needs. We look forward forward to seeing how this partnership with Zoo Miami complements broader efforts to protect and restore the Everglades ecosystem and safeguard the future of the sparrow. This is a promising strategy to ensure the continued management, care, and eventual reintroduction of the Cape Sable seaside sparrow into the wild. We're committed to supporting this initiative and urge the district to work with interagency partners to ensure the swift and effective implementation of this program. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Newcamp. We'll hear next from Mark Perry, followed by Lisa Interlandi.
Morning, Governing Board. Mark Perry, Florida Oceanographic. Just a good, quick announcements about the budget for this state year, and it's good that we have those funds coming to the district for implementation. But my concern is also how the state legislature is involved in that kind of implementation and selection of those kind of project implementation. So we're tracking that as well. And of course, the Southland project, I hope you continue to review that. It has that impacts to the system right there, and we're aware of that. We've been following the workshops, and obviously, hopefully, the district continue to do that and bring it back to the board sometime soon. But the Corps of Engineers weighed in, and they're going to need a 408 permit. So that's a kind of another good review that has to happen because that's tied into works of the district. Drew actually kind of was talking about the NEAP, which you hear me talk about practically every time I come up. I appreciate Charlotte Roman bringing that up last month to how important it is. There's a fact sheet, of course, in your agenda that brings up that workshop that's happening on September 26th. And as Drew mentioned, I'm encouraged that hopefully even in August or September, Governing Board, they'll come back together with all three agencies before you to kind of present that. They just completed in June 27th the 3 BMAPs that are involved with NEAP. They're very comprehensive updates, but we're not meeting our milestones, and that's got to be addressed right away. We're already 5-10 years and more into the projects here, and we need to address how we're going to meet that total maximum daily loads in all 3 of these watersheds. So you've heard me talk about this before. I think it's really critical that we address that. You do an excellent job of monitoring all the loadings that coming in from all the sub watersheds within these watersheds. So I appreciate you getting that to your attention and bringing that up. And thanks again, Drew, to bring that together.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. We'll hear next from Lisa Interlandi.
Hey, everyone. I am here about Southland. I have been saying the quiet part out loud, I feel like, for the last 6 months or so. But I feel like it's really important for you guys to understand what our concerns are with this project, and it is too important to Everglades Restoration to allow this to be buried, so I need to continue to talk about it. But I want to talk about, and I want you guys to understand really what has happened over the last year that you guys have not been studying this project. So you guys have not been studying this project for the last year. But you know what's happened? Palm Beach County approved it. Palm Beach County approved an 8,000-acre mine directly adjacent to the EA reservoir. It's already approved. No further approval by the South Florida Water Management District is required. It's not required to be a water resource project. If it is ultimately becomes a water resource project, South Florida Water Management District is not required to be involved anyway. Any government entity, including a local water control district or even a nonprofit entity, can serve as the local sponsor under Palm Beach County's development order for this project. So Water Management District approval, engagement, participation in the future for the mining project that is already approved is not required. Next thing, as Drew mentioned, DEP has already issued a permit, has issued their notice of intent to issue this, the permit for this project. That would have already gone into effect, if not for 20 brave individuals and organizations who basically stepped in front of the bus to try to stop this from moving forward. Okay? Those are individuals who feel that their interests are being impacted and that rely on Everglades Restoration to actually work, that rely on the EA reservoir to work as it was planned to work. Okay? If not for those people, this would already be approved by all the agencies that have to approve it for a mine to start going forward. Maybe the Corps will jump in, we'll see. The Corps has written a letter now Your partner in Everglades restoration, your partner on the EA reservoir is raising serious concerns about not just the potential future of this project as a water resource project, but the fact that it's going to be a mine directly adjacent to their massive above-ground reservoir, and what impact that's going to have on seepage and operations. You guys, you don't operate in a bubble. Decisions are being made around you that are impacting your ability to effectively move forward and achieve your mission. You guys have every right to be involved in the DEP permitting process regarding this. You guys are adjacent property owners. Your interests are at stake. You can't just not study this when it's all happening around you. Continue not studying it, and you will have a huge mine directly adjacent to this. You need to engage. The studying it is, it's not going to solve this problem. It's not going to answer the questions that you need answered, which is whether you can continue to operate and move forward with your restoration objectives with this project in proximity. So please, I urge you to get involved now.
Thank you, Ms. Interlandi. Mr. Chairman, we have no hands raised on Zoom and no further public comment.
Thanks all very much for your comments. We'll move now to board comment. Let's see, I'll start with Mr. Butler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to everybody for the comments today. Congratulations and thank you to Mr. Otero. 35 years, and it's still going strong, the Energizer Bunny, and taking on new responsibilities, I hear. So, and with that, I want to say to a couple other staff members that I've personally had the privilege of working with, Megan Jacoby, Julia Monaco, thank you for your service to the district. And thank you for your friendship along the way, and look forward. Glad we have friends in new places now. So Drew, we're spreading that network with good people. I do want to take a moment, as we've all seen in the news, the Texas flood in the Hill Country, the flash flooding and the lives that are lost. Thoughts and prayers with all those families, the people that are doing the search recovery. You know, every day it's additional missing people. But for me, and I'm sure the rest of my board members and Drew's staff, it serves as a reminder, the responsibility in our system in South Florida, we're a highly engineered flood control system, the responsibility we have in protecting our communities from flooding. And I look up here at our mission statement, I mean, it's right dead center, right in the middle of the mission statement there. You know, we're fortunate in one aspect that we have some control, but Mother Nature's there. We see these supercells that are slow moving that pop up. We've had them in our system, and for me, it's a reminder that we've got to continue to maintain our system and make sure that we can provide that flood protection for our residents in South Florida. One more, see, Lake Okeechobee, I won't take Mitnick's thunder, but he'll have an update on recovery mode, and I'll leave it there, other than I continue to get pictures from friends that are on the lake fishing of all this wonderful vegetation that's popping up. These are little sprouts, and I don't know what all the vegetation is. That's what I'll yeah. But it looks good. Yeah, at least I'm honest. There we go. Just like I don't know what a keel cooler is, but I know now. But no, you know, so I look forward to our August report and Ms. Cassandra and what we have to see there when we get our SAV report for Lake O recovery. I do want to say thank you to everybody for understanding this important part of LOSOM. And thank you to the Corps for allowing this thing to continue forward when there were options to not continue it forward. But I also recognize that ultimately Mother Nature's in control, and you know, we are relying upon the weather now with a low lake, and a low lake that is climbing, and so I mean there's multiple issues there to be watching for water supply in the coming year, but also in the rise of the lake, and allowing that SAV to take root and take hold. And, you know, Newton says 5 years for a full recovery. I'm sure there's science behind at least a couple years that it's going to take for this lake to bounce back, and for all the benefits that that provides. Just one last little point. I have heard numerous concerns from friends, from others, and it's the concerns that we have heard since I've come on this board. But it is judicial use of herbicides. You know, this goes along with the discussion on Lake Okeechobee. I know our partners are in charge of controlling floating aquatic vegetation and other vegetation within the lake. The district uses a bunch of herbicides. Our municipality uses herbicides. Our cities use herbicides. Our counties use herbicides to control our waterways. Herbicides are an important tool in our toolbox. But it is important for us to judicially use that tool. We owe it to the public to show that we are following up and that we are making sure that that what our scientists, what our great staff and other government organizations that prescribe the use of these tools follow up to make sure that they're being done correctly. And I appreciate our district staff is been working with me, and will continue to work to verify and vet that we are using our tools properly. You know, these are tools that we absolutely do not need taken away from us, because there is not another alternative in some of these cases. But I look forward, and I hope, Drew, that we can make the district a role model and a leader when it comes to herbicide application and the way we administer the program. You know, it hurts me to see the comments, to actually get the comments voiced to me about the district just willy-nilly dealing with this. And my goal with my last few years here is to make us a leader, make us the agency that's looked to for doing it right, and communicating that to the public. So I'll leave that there. Thanks, sir.
Thanks, Mr. Butler. Colonel Roman?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To follow up on your comments, Mr. Butler, I think that we did set a goal as a board to reduce the use of herbicides. So maybe it's time to circle back, Drew, and for you to give us an update on how we're doing. And a lot of this comes down to money and manpower, right? Because if we had our way and we could wave our magic wand, we'd do it mechanically, and that's just not possible. So maybe give us an update on that. I'd like to really thank the legislature and the governor for the great support on our budget. This is going to be really incredible to continue the momentum of Everglades restoration and having the support of those individuals that make up the legislature, and also the governor's great support to keep it going. And so with this budget, we'll be able to do that. And, you know, I had the honor to see the Miller Pump Station turned on at the Picayune Strand Restoration Project, and that's one of the governor's key projects, priority key projects, if you'll recall, that he set out, and he designated 29 key projects, I believe the number was. But with the Miller plugging and the turning on of the pump station, that adds 17,000 acres that are restored back to the natural hydrology. So, you know, we're clipping away at that 55,000 acres that's going to be the full restoration when we celebrate at the ribbon cutting. And I just want to give a shout out to a couple of the field station guys, Josh Charles and Adam Kennard, that came in on their day off on a Friday to join us with the Corps, the district and the Corps folks, to turn that pump station on. And it's been, as Drew mentioned, cranking out water since it was turned on. It hasn't been turned off, so that was all good news. The other item I have is I was able to join the cattlemen at the Cattlemen Convention down there on Marco Island, and it was great to attend the Environmental and Natural Lands Committee meeting. Ray Palmer, our real estate leader, made a presentation, and it was very well received, and his presentation was on dispersed water management projects, and hopefully we'll see more folks coming online to look into how they can partner with the district on those projects. I gave a couple of comments about how we would like to see more of those projects in the Caloosahatchee watershed, so maybe we'll be identifying a few more of those for the future. Also, Ray Palmer has also been working with a small group of cattlemen, and I attended some side meetings on how to improve the portions of our leasing program. So this has been an ongoing discussion that we've had. It's been going on for over a year now, but I think we're making progress, and I think everything that came out of the meeting that I attended was very positive, and it's always great to be with the cattlemen and to hear their ideas on how things can be better. And so I really, really enjoyed that, and that was a great opportunity. That's all I have for now.
Thanks. Mr. Hurley.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have a lot to say today other than, as was said earlier, thank you to the governor and the legislature for passing the budget finally and giving us the resources we need to continue the work. Those of us that get little views into that process, it's a challenging process, and all those stakeholders that were involved, Drew and your team, I appreciate your hard work on that, because there's lots of hands grabbing those at those resources that are limited. Also, great organizations are built by people like Mr. Otero, and 35 years is tremendous, and I'm grateful for his service and his family's service, because it's a team effort. When you're with an organization for 35 years, that's what great organizations are really built upon. Ben mentioned it earlier. I have two friends from Dallas whose children were involved at the Mystic Camp in Texas, and it really struck home just how important, the organizing role that our district was built upon of flood control. Now we take it for granted. We're working on some very exciting restoration projects, and all of it is so important, but when you see up close and personal what Mother Nature can do in taking life, it just really reinforced with me just how important that role is, that we can never forget how important that feature of our portfolio is. And so, you hate to have a terrible, terrible tragedy reinforce that fact, but that may be sort of a divine reminder how important that infrastructure is. So with that, that's all I have.
Thanks, Mr. Hurley. See, Mr. Bergeron.
Yes, good morning. First of all, I'll try to be a little brief, but good morning to my fellow board members and staff and stakeholders. And I'm just going to give a little brief update on the Tamiami Trail. I want to thank Drew and John for their leadership in coordinating 4 state agencies and 4 federal agencies. They have put together a critical path schedule of everything needed in order, when the road is completed, that we are moving water south for the first time in a long time. So I really want to thank them for their leadership. I want to thank our federal partners and all of our state partners And I'm not going to get into the details, but within the next couple of years, based upon everything that's going on down at the trail, we should be able to match the inflows to the outflows for the first time in probably 100 years. So I really want to compliment everyone as we continue to move forward and as we hear at every meeting, moving water south. Also, I want us, the Blue Shanty, as we continue to go forward, I think has to be accelerated. That's the last piece of the puzzle that allows water to equalize across the global system and match the inflows to the outflows. And also, all our prayers to the families in Texas, very heartfelt on that there. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Martinez.
Nothing, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Spotswood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple weeks ago, I was able to join Newton and the group at the Recreation Forum. Really thank them for having me. A lot of great discussion. Excited to participate in those going forward. Ben, to your comments about use of spraying on lake and other waterways, that's something that I look forward to learning more about and helping you with that mission. Charlotte, I know we're going to get an update from Drew on that. So looking forward to hearing more about that and learning more a little bit more about the lake in general. Other than that, just would reiterate some of the comments related to the tragedies in Texas. Praying for those folks, and if there's anything we can do from here to help Drew, would like to hear about that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Spotswood. Mr. Steinle.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Sorry I can't be with you guys today. I do want to thank the executive team and staff for their work on the budget and tightening belts and coming up with a lot of efficiencies, as that's important as we look to manage our budgets, the taxpayers' contributions effectively. So thank you for doing that work. Also really excited to hear about progress going to be made on the captured breeding program for Cape Sable. Ron, that's an issue that you've taught us so much about, and we've had some great dialogue about over the years, and one that is great, although frustrating to sort of accept that it's being handled so late. It's great that it is being addressed. I also do want to reply to Lisa Interlandi's comments. We are studying this. That is the Southland rock mine. The contractor has until end of August to give us a very detailed presentation on how this will be constructed, managed, paid for as a water management project after the materials are taken out. We will continue to do our work. And I obviously, I don't want to speak for other people on the board, but I think I can fairly say that it is going to be very important to us that any project, whatever it is, that we can clearly determine that it is compatible with the EAA reservoir, which is so important to our mission, and to the benefits of what we're trying to achieve. Also want to convey that we've asked the contractor for more detail around economics and how they can contribute to this being managed as a project, as well as water treatment, which would be and has been promoted to be natural water treatment. So again, I know that folks have conveyed that the train has left the station. From our perspective, we still have work to do, and we will make our voices heard, both in support or opposition, based on what we receive in the next few months. Thanks.
Now, thank you, Mr. Steinle. I'd like to reiterate what my fellow board members have said, and it sounds trite, but it's not. My thoughts and prayers are absolutely with the folks of Texas, and if there is anything we can do, Drew, I'm sure we would be, and I'm sure you will, to help. It's a small world. You know some folks. I know some folks. You never think you would, but you do, and it brings home how small our country is and how important our mission is here. I too also want to thank the governor and the legislature, particularly the governor, for his bold asks for Everglades restoration and the work that we do here. It's incredibly impressive to me that he's kept that commitment over the 6 years he's been governor and continues to, and the legislature for following through and helping us out. We really appreciate that. Both Charlotte and I had a chance to go to Washington, D.C. to celebrate the 25th anniversary of SERP with the Everglades Foundation and other stakeholders. And I want to thank particularly some of the speakers who stood out to me. Senator Moody gave, Moody, thank you. I'm not used to saying Senator Moody. Senator Moody gave a very good speech. It was incredibly positive, and I really appreciate her thoughts on Everglades restoration, as did Representative Mast, who gave a very powerful comments. And it was nice to see Representative Donalds, Representative Moskowitz also helping, staying focused on this issue along with General Kelly. They had a good presentation. So I appreciate all their help. And looking back on SERP over 25 years, it was interesting to me. My dad was there, which was nice for him. He actually got to vote for SERP, and he said it was an odd vote because it was during a lame duck, and it was not just any lame duck, but it was the lame duck with Clinton and Bush and Gore, and so you had really odd dynamics in Washington, D.C., and this is one of those issues that brought everybody together, and not much else was. So it was interesting to see that, and it's. 25 years later, we're making some good progress, and we'll keep forging ahead. Speaking of progress, I'm incredibly excited about next Tuesday. It's the C-43 ribbon cutting. I think it's Tuesday. I'm not sure. Yeah. I think it's Thursday today. I got it in late last night, so I'm not sure what day it is. But next Tuesday, the C-43 ribbon cutting, really looking forward to that. And I can't thank staff enough for all they've done to make that happen and to make it finally a reality. I'd like to congratulate Shannon Estanos, a former governing board member, for her new position at the Everglades Foundation as a policy director, and look forward to working with her. And I want to thank Julia Lamonaco, who was our acting counsel for a while. She stood in and helped us out when we needed somebody, and I really appreciate her help. And I didn't know Megan Jacoby was leaving, but I don't know if you're allowed. Clearly she is, and clearly it's out of the bag. But I wish her all the best as well, because I had the opportunity to work with her in D.C. She was incredibly sharp on the Corps process, and she will be missed. As far as herbicides go, we definitely had that conversation 4 years ago. I think you had a really good chart that showed how we were reducing our usage. I don't remember if it was gallons or tons or pounds or whatever it was, but it was going down, and I'd like to see that chart, and I'd like to see hopefully the trend line is continuing down. So I think that's a good idea to bring that up. And that's all I've got. So we'll move now to consent. Is there any board member who wants to move any items to the consent agenda for discussion? Okay, if not, we'll go to public comment on consent.
Mr. Chairman, we have no public comment and no hands raised on Zoom.
All right. Can I have a motion to approve consent?
I'll move to approve consent.
Second.
thanks. I have a motion and a second.
And Mr. Chair, I'd like to make one comment on consent before we vote, if I could.
Sure.
I wanted to highlight number 19. I think it's really great that Four Corners Rapid Infiltration is going to increase their storage, and congratulations to staff for working with the person on that and the project holder.
I totally,
Great job.
absolutely agree with that. Further discussion? All right, I have a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead and call that question. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. Charlotte?
Yes?
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Steinley?
Yes.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. Now we'll move to discussion, and that is just our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's me again, the reoccurring dream, not nightmare.
Good thing.
To talk about next year's budget. So what we do in this agenda item, so every July, the board members need to consider the ad valorem rates and come up with their recommendations of ad valorem rates so we can tell the counties and the tax assessors what to put in the trim notice. So that's this board meeting, and it's always coupled with putting together a tentative budget, which the staff in the budget office has done, and it's a lot of work for them, as you all know and have experienced. So anyway, but I get the privilege of basically doing this presentation for you on the budget. So as we put together a budget, a draft budget for next fiscal year, we do have our sort of our North Stars. And one of them is the governor's executive order that he signed, the first governor to sign an executive order on the environment with the kind of investment that he was calling for Florida's environmental and ecosystem restoration, in particular Everglades restoration, which we are named in both executive orders, so we need to put together our budget with that in mind. The other North Star is basically our mission, right? And so as we're putting together a budget, we need to focus on what our primary goals are, which is safeguarding, restoring South Florida's water resources, protecting our communities from flooding, and meeting the regional water needs. So as we put this together, focusing on the results in these two areas, that was what we used as our guidepost to make sure that we balanced a budget that achieved these goals. And so the staff in the budget office worked tirelessly to put together a $1.425 billion budget for the South Florida Water Management District. And this is how it's sort of funded with the state resources and ad valorem taxes. That's the major funding sources for our budget. And then that goes into the major programs we have, which is the land acquisition, restoration, and public works, which is our ecosystem restoration efforts, and the operation and maintenance of our land and flood control systems, and the restoration projects. So this is how it's broken down. Some of the details behind it. So this, if you compare this budget, this is a tentative budget for next year to last year's budget, it is $200 million less than last year's budget. And that is largely for two reasons. The federal Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities program was cut, so that came out of our budget. And then last year, the governor had asked for $150 million. The legislature appropriated that. This year, he asked for it. They did not appropriate it. And so we had to work hard to balance the budget. We had a preliminary budget that included those sources of funds that we issued in January. So we needed to balance the budget by taking that, basically reducing our budget from that preliminary budget by $191 million. And so the staff worked hard with all the programs to figure out how to make that gap. Part of it is we do have new ad valorem sources coming in, which is $38 million. The staff's worked hard to apply for state grants. So we do have $12 million of new grants coming into the district next year through our resiliency program. But then we had to make up the rest. And so part of it was our capital program, which I'll get into later on how we did that, but we did need to defer a number of projects, which amounted to $89 million. And then we did some belt tightening, which amounted to $43 million. And then we had expenses of $9 million we did not need to expend. But the 43 million is that efficiencies Mr. Steinley was talking about, and there were some vacancies, 24 vacancies that were removed. Our salary budget from last year, we're trying to make sure that's right, where it needs to be, and so that was reduced a bit. But it really some O&M. We just looked where there were places in the organization that made sense to tighten that belt, right? And so all those efforts, and it was a lot of work done by the budget office and our leadership team here to really try to figure out how to make all this balance and continue our mission. So I'm going to get more into that and what we will be able to do with a 1.425 million and a little bit of what we won't be able to do. So what we will be able to do, we still have this incredible science monitoring and water supply planning program, $75 million program, which is robust, but we have a lot of work going on out there with ecosystem restoration and managing all of the information and being able to be responsive. And so we are continuing, not cutting, our continued expanded monitoring network in all these different priority areas, Lake Okeechobee, Lake Worth Lagoon, Biscayne Bay, all these different places, which includes the SERP monitoring. As you know, we stood up our algae response team, and all the algae information we have on Lake Okeechobee, that continues. Our new efforts in modeling and machine learning continues. And of course, we do have our QBEL for the SDAs, our water quality limit, coming online next year, so that monitoring will continue and continue our Python research. So a lot of that will be ongoing with a $1.4 billion budget. And then we have, of course, our O&M program. And so this is a bulk of our recurring operational dollars. It's a $429 million budget. And that is basically all the O&M we have to do for flood control for our communities and to rebuild that system. And if you can tell by the statistics that we talk about all the time, it's a large flood control system, so it takes a large budget to operate, including all the monitoring and SCADA that we use. Also inside this 429 is our economic stabilization, or our rainy day funds, our emergency funds. That's a $58 million line item. We did not touch that. That's still a very healthy line item for our economic stabilization. And of course, land management is also included in that budget, which I want to get to next. This is critical, right? Stewardship of our conservation lands. If you let that get away from you, it's going to cost tenfold, right? So we are very focused on making sure that our efforts do not lose control of these very important efforts on exotics, essentially. This will continue the intensive exotic effort we have going on over in Picayune Strand, continue our prescribed burn, focusing on a goal of 20,000 acres per year. But then really another big component of this is managing our stormwater treatment areas. That is a Herculean effort, lots of planting, lots of control, lots of effort in those stormwater treatment areas, not only for trying to meet the QBEL, but also for managing public recreation in those stormwater treatment areas. So there's a lot of effort that goes on in land management. We're very proud of it, but we're going to continue that effort itself. And I can't really talk about that effort without talking about the Python program. I talked about the numbers. There we go. And you can see those are the numbers we've removed since 2019, when the governor basically really energized this program, both at FWC and the Water Management District. But you can see how we're really contributing to that effort to remove these pythons from the Everglades, and really from the South Florida ecosystem altogether. So let's talk about one of the big efforts and challenges we have at the Water Management District, and that's this flood control system, which works great. This was spawned from a tragic flooding event that happened, before, in 1948, and 1929 was the tragedy. And so this flood control system was built 50 years ago, so it's really needs to be refurbished and rebuilt now. Right, and so we've been talking about this. This effort is $100 million in this year's budget. I will say that if you look at the demand on this rebuilding effort, it needs to be north of $200 million. And so we are very focused on upping this budget every year, working with Tallahassee and upping this budget. But we have done that, right? So this, when we started, and as early as 3-4 years ago, this was $52 million. Now it's at $100 million. So with our, all the efforts we're doing with our own budget, we have been able to increase this to $100 million. That will continue next year and the year after until we're really dealing with this issue with a full head of steam. And part of that is really adapting to the changed conditions. So here we do have our sea level rise and flood resiliency plan that really is, when that flood control system was built 50 years ago, it was built for a planned population of 2 million people, right? We're at 9 million people right now. So that changes how the flood control system works. Then you couple that with sea level rise, and this chart shows how many times per year in this one S28 coastal flood control structure that you can't operate it, right? So because it's high tide and you can't open the gate. So this is something that we absolutely are investing in, and I am proud to say that next fiscal year, we will be launching and breaking ground on 2 of those coastal structures, the S27 and S29 coastal structure. This has been a long time coming. This was affected by the cuts in the BRIC grants, but we were able to rework our budget to try to make sure that we could still break ground on these 2 very important projects for these communities, highly populated communities that are served by these 2 structures in Miami-Dade County, which are currently struggling with sea level rise. So, and that involves this is a structure that needs to be rebuilt. So while we're rebuilding the structure, we're going to add a pump station, and that's the S27, and also at the S29 coastal structures. So we still will be able to continue that effort. Some of the biggest effort that we are charged with by the governor in his executive orders is Everglades restoration and water quality. And, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I've been in the environmental business since I came out of college. And to say that in these 6 years, $8 billion has been put towards Florida's environment, with a lot of that going to Everglades restoration, I mean, it's a proud time to be part of the Water Management District on these efforts. And I know that when I was at DEP and I would go to the other southeastern states and talk about the investments we were making, they're pretty flabbergasted. It just you could add all the other states together and it wouldn't come close to this, right? It is an amazing amount of investment for Florida's environment, and we know how important that is, not only for the environment but for us and our communities and our economy. So let's break it down. This was the funding that is in our budget for Everglades projects and water quantity and quality projects. And this is how it was broken down in the state budget. There's a line, $550 million for these specific CERT projects. There's a separate line, $64 million for basically the EAA reservoir plus other environmental restoration projects in that line. We have $50 million coming in for the Lake Okeechobee Watershed Restoration Project, and $81 million, an increase to $81 million for the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection projects, including dispersed water storage. Significant funding. So what I like to do in this presentation is kind of do a tour, if you will, of some of the key projects and conclude with sort of a reflection of what this really means for us. Isn't that pretty? That is the C43 reservoir. You can see an embankment. You can see a pump station, and you will be able to see that in person next Tuesday. But in next fiscal year, we will put the final touches on this, which includes the recreation features. But it will be this cell where this pump station is will have functional use, and next year the other cell will have functional use. It's going to take a while to get this operational testing done, but this is all coming online next fiscal year for operational testing. The next one is the Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands. Next fiscal year, we are going to finish this project. This is the Cutler Wetlands that we're building, and so what you see here is the pump station coming out of the ground, and this is the spreader canal taking form. It'll come in here, hit the spreader canal, and spread into these Cutler wetlands. So it's a very exciting time to be at the Water Management District to finish that project. And there's, of course, a lot of work going on Tamiami Trail. And so the road raising continues. Next fiscal year, the traffic will shift, so the road will be raised. And you know, all the efforts we've had to try to get more water under Tamiami Trail will be available. The other efforts is the Blue Shanty Flowway, which brings the water right through here. These 3 culverts are being built by the Corps with our support. That's one of them coming out of the levee right now. And then we will break ground on this structure right here, which is the S335 spillway, which unlocks the ability to degrade this levee and build this levee, right? So it's major milestones will be happening next fiscal year. And then, while there's not a milestone necessarily, but it's really exciting to see the pictures, so I wanted to share them. These are the 3 culverts on the L28 levee that are being built for Western Everglades restoration, and you can see concrete being poured. These 3 culverts are really coming to life on that levee, so it'll be exciting to see those continue. Oops. And this one is this is a couple of projects that I've spent a lot of my time at DEP working on the Indian River Lagoon and trying to restore the Indian River Lagoon. And as we sit here right now, there is a lot of water flowing out of the C23 and 24 canal into the St. Lucie estuary, which is very unhealthy for that estuary, and out of the C25 canal straight into the Indian River Lagoon. And we will be able to break ground on these 2 reservoirs. When they come online, they move the needle. We are seeing the needle moved on the C44 canal with the C44 reservoir, eliminating that discharge, but we don't have these tools yet for the other 3 canals that go into the Indian River Lagoon and St. Lucie estuary. So we will be able to break ground on these 2 reservoirs. So that's a very exciting piece of news. And then, of course, Northern Everglades, one of the major projects is Lake Hicpochee Phase 2. That will be constructed in earnest starting probably a little bit before next fiscal year, but really get rolling next fiscal year to really remove and store and clean water off of the Caloosahatchee River to protect the estuary. So really, those are some of the super highlights, but I want to kind of do a reflection. So there's a lot of projects. We're up to the 75 projects, either started, completed, or hit a major milestone. It'll go to 76 next Tuesday. And this is what we've been able to accomplish since 2019. East and West reservoirs completed, right? Restoration strategies completed. The new STA started and completed for the EAA reservoir, 6,000 acres of wetland treatment. Started and completed the seepage wall. Finished the restoration of the Kissimmee River. Many dispersed water management projects have come online during that time. Others, like removing Old Tamiami Trail, putting in the 333 North structure to move water under the bridges. Lots of projects finished and started and finished, actually, during this time. But next fiscal year, we will have more projects completed, right? And that is the East and West reservoirs will be fully completed next fiscal year. Restoration strategies, let's see. Whoops, nope. I didn't realize this was a movie, so this is the current slide that anyway, there you go. Let me get to the next slide. So next fiscal year, we do have, I was wondering those. Next fiscal year, we had Biscayne Bay Coastal Wetlands that will be finished next fiscal year. Cutler Wetlands and the L31 Flowway, which was that partnership with the Corps. The Corps is building it, but that is going to come online. Of course, we have Picayune Strand restoration fully online next fiscal year. Tamiami Trail raising done next fiscal year. Finishing the C23-24 stormwater treatment area associated with Indian River Lagoon South, and that estuary discharge diversion canal where you take water off the C23 canal instead of it hitting the St. Lucie estuary and move it into the C44 reservoir. That will be done next year. We will have finished the expansion of our Clewiston and Homestead field stations. That first SEP North component that we broke ground on, it will finish. And we will finish a few more ASR test wells to keep those ASR cluster systems moving forward. All right, so, sorry, Molly, I am not experienced at this one. So we have starting construction. Also, we'll start construction in the C-23, in next fiscal year for the Blue Shanty Flowway, right? Our component of that. The EAA Reservoir project, we will continue and start our construction on the Miami Canal expansion and start construction on the communication tower for the EAA Reservoir project. We will start, as I talked, start construction on the 2 reservoirs for Indian River Lagoon, the 2 coastal structures, Lake Hicpochee, but also another Caloosahatchee project, the BOMA Flow Equalization Basin. Be able to start construction if all the permitting works out on that one. And then more SEP North components. Lucinea has walked through a number of those components, and we'll be able to start construction on those components. That's a lot. I've said a lot because it is a lot, right? And that does not happen without people, right? And without this workforce at the South Florida Water Management District and excellent partners at FDEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. And really with next year's budget, we'd make it a priority to take care of our folks because they take care of us. We are competitive in the wage department with other government agencies. We've got good benefits. We can attract and keep employees. And it really serves us well because I'm telling you, when you engage, and all of you have, I know, board members with our employees, they are committed to our mission, and they really like the public service opportunity we provide, and we like them doing that too. And so we want to take care of them with our next year's budget the same way they take care of us. So with that, Mr. Chair, this is where I'll turn it back over to you to consider basically making the recommendation on the ad valorem rates. These are our continuation ad valorem rates. We're not raising taxes, but we are bringing in additional revenue with these continuation rates. So back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Bartlett. We'll go to public comment, and then we'll go to board questions.
Mr. Chairman, we have no public comment.
Well, that was quick. We'll come back. Is there any board comment? Discussion?
Just real quick, Mr. Chairman. So, Drew, I want to commend you and staff on, certainly putting this budget together. I thought it was well put together. And then the scrambling while you were on vacation. No, staff did a great job in finding these things that to make our budget balance. Certainly continuing the millage is it's where we need to be, in my opinion. But we've got a lot of stuff that have deferred, and I appreciate your recognizing, the staff recognizing it, and hopefully we can develop a plan, and eventually we can get caught back up on a lot of the stuff that were deferred. But no, thank you to everybody for putting this together.
Anyone else? I'll second that. Mr. Butler, I've put a lot of budgets together. I've never had to come up with that much money that quickly, and you all did a great job with that, and thank you. And I know you probably had that in your hip pocket, but it was well done, and we appreciate it, as do the taxpayers. Having said that, this stuff isn't getting cheaper, and it's really important, and we can't live in South Florida without it, so we got to pay for it. If there's no further discussion, no further comments or questions, we can,
Mr. Chairman, I'll
have a motion.
Move resolution 250708.
I have a motion on 250708. Is there a second?
Second?
Is there further comment? Hearing none, we'll call that question. Mr. Butler?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hurley?
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Martinez?
Yes.
Mr. Spotswood?
Yes.
Mr. Steinle?
Yes.
Thank you all. That passes unanimously. Our
Thank you, Mr.
mill
Chair.
rate is set. Thanks. We'll go now to technical reports with Mr. Mitnick and Ms. Armstrong.
Thank you. So not that the staff doesn't dutifully listen to all board comments, I'll point out as she's walking out that Ms. Fincher leaned over to me during board comments and to steal Drew's phrase when folks were talking about the storms in Texas, that flood control is this agency's origin story. So with that, let's check in on where the flood control system is for this time of year. So for the month of June, you can see we had still a deficit of rainfall. It was a little bit drier than is typically during the month of June. So far for the month of July, we've got a decent amount of rain. You'll see here in the next slide that it's still slightly below average, but you typically during the month of July, you get we call it the July doldrums, where there's this little lull and then it starts picking back up again in August and September. But so far for the wet season, you can see we're right about at average, but that's fun with math in the sense that all of the higher rainfall has been over here on the west coast and up through the lake and up to the upper east coast, with deficits of rainfall over there on the lower east coast. So you do all that math over 16 counties and you wind up right at average. So that's kind of where we are so far for the wet season, but it's predominantly been weighted over towards the west coast with lower amounts of rainfall here on the lower east coast. But with that, starting in the upper chain, you can see that rain that I was just talking about up here in East Lake has brought lake levels up. And so each of these lakes, East Lake and West Lake, are starting to rise back up to their summer pools and fill back up. And once they start filling up and get back up to their summer pool, then you'll start to see a little bit more movement of water down through the system from East Lake to West Lake and down into the Kissimmee, Cypress, Hatch-and-Hall group down here. But for Lake Kissimmee right now, you can see it has been coming up just from rainfall within the that three-lake basin right there. So it's been releasing water in accordance with the Headwaters Increment 1 regulation schedule and continuing to move water down the river itself. So as the lake continues to rise up through its schedule and these upper lakes start to discharge down into Kissimmee and that water accumulates, then you'll see flows start increasing down the river. So with that, this is how the river looks right now.
So with the increased rainfall, we are starting to see a little bit of rehydration of some of the areas within the floodplain, but it is still fairly dry, and this is not unusual for this time of year. Our current discharge at S65A is 890 CFS, which is a pretty significant jump from 1 month ago. However, we are still not at the 1400 CFS threshold that's needed for bank flow discharge in order to get the floodplain fully hydrated. So we're still pretty dry up in the northern section, even with the increased river flow and rainfall. One of the side effects of the rainfall is that we've got lower dissolved oxygen in the river, and this is not uncommon. When we have increased flows and higher temperatures, the dissolved oxygen concentration will start to decline, but you can see from the graph that we are still very well into our zone of health for the aquatic animals. We have no concerns.
So has water moved around the upper portion of the system? So far, you can see right here, haven't had a whole lot of inflow into Lake Okeechobee, only about 157,000 acre feet. So there hasn't, with the rains that we have had in the upper chain and the upper portions of the district, all of that water, as I just said a couple minutes ago, has been accumulating in all the lakes. There's some flow coming down the river. But as the wet season progresses, and that'll start to pick up, and you can probably start to see higher inflows into Lake Okeechobee as we move forward. Right now, as of this morning, it was just less than about 2,000 CFS of inflows into the lake from all areas. Predominantly, that inflow is coming from the Indian Prairie Basin right in here. So that basin got a decent amount of rain, as you saw in the previous couple slides, so it started discharging, and the soil had accumulated enough and got saturated enough that we started generating runoff in that basin. So that'll start to pick up as we go through the other basins and they start getting more and more rainfall. But looking over on the west coast in total to the Caloosahatchee, there's only been about 120,000 acre feet, with little less than 17,000 acre feet having originated back here in Lake Okeechobee. That basin runoff also has started to pick up over the last couple weeks. Right now, the 30-day running average for flows to the Caloosahatchee estuary is just over 1,000 CFS. And the daily averages are a little bit higher than that. But again, same story. As the basin starts to get that flow, it's starting to saturate the soils and generate that runoff. Over here on the east coast, there hasn't been any water moved from the C44 basin back to the St. Lucie estuary. Right now, because of the Lake Okeechobee is lower down at 1149 as of this morning, all of that water within the C44 basin is flowing back into Lake Okeechobee, and you can see that just 55,000 acre feet is that movement of water back towards Lake Okeechobee to start bringing up lake levels itself. But the other two basins, as you saw in the previous graphic, have gotten above average rains. So those basins have started to generate runoff in C25, 23, and 24, and move that water both to the estuary and up here around the Fort Pierce area to the Indian River Lagoon. So looking at Lake Okeechobee and the projections of what we can reasonably expect moving forward, as I said today, you're sitting right around in there at 1149, so to speak. We're just bouncing back and forth in and out of the water shortage management band, because this is the time of the year that the water shortage management band rises up to its high of 13 by October 1st. So typically I tend to focus in on that 50 percentile line right here, meaning you've got a 50-50 chance of being either above or below that line as we move forward in time. So we can reasonably expect, at least for the next month or so, we'll be bouncing in and out of the water shortage management band as we move forward. But once we get out into August and we get past those July doldrums that I had referred to, hopefully the atmosphere picks up and we start giving some of those rains. So if you look nationally and why Texas and some of the Midwest is having those severe thunderstorms, and along the East Coast today, it's because our weather is drier. When you see that sort of pattern set up, you have those fronts stay farther north of us. That's the typical La Nina pattern, is that those fronts don't come all the way down to Florida, and they stay farther north into the lower continental U.S., and that's when, Texas, Alabama, Louisiana, and then off into Mississippi, Virginia, up the East Coast, that's when they start getting hit by those weather fronts and those severe storms. That under an El Nino condition, they come closer down to us. But that's just weather 101. Okay, so I'll look at this screen. So just real quick for recovery operations, we're out of recovery operations, as I said last month, but just continuing to track the target that we set out for with the Corps of Engineers and our partners in lake management. You can see there on the right-hand side, the target objective being below 11.5 feet. For 60 days, we're well above that, so check that box. This slide was actually produced yesterday, so below 12 feet for 90 days. We only have 3 days left to make it. And as I said, the lake is at 1149 as of this morning. I seriously doubt it's going to raise a half a foot in the next 3 days. So we're going to go check both of these boxes, that the goal that was ascribed to or targeted way back when recovery operations were implemented by the Corps of Engineers has been successful, and Cassandra will talk a little bit more about Lake Okeechobee and its conditions from a vegetative standpoint.
Okay, we've had some flows coming into the lake, as John said, for June 6th to July 6th, so a 30-day total. Flow into the lake has been 61,000 acre feet, outflow has been 19 acre feet, and rainfall has exceeded evaporation by 109,000 acre feet. but we haven't seen a whole lot of increase in the lake stage, and a lot of that is due to the rehydration of the marshes that surround the lake. So once those marshes get rehydrated, the impact of new water into the lake will start to be felt more deeply. But as you can see on the graph on the right, there's been a rapid increase in the amount of inflow that has been coming in, but we're still holding water back. We're not sending a lot out at this time. All right, so as mentioned, we have met pretty much our targets for recovery, but we're still in the recovery envelope, just barely. We're towards the bottom of it, and we will continue to monitor the recovery envelope going forward. And as I mentioned, the impact on the lake levels has only been a couple of tenths of foot over the past past month, primarily due to that rehydration of the marshes and the soil. And from a water quality perspective, we are seeing excellent water quality at the moment. Our chlorophyll concentrations are fairly low, both in the pelagic zone, which is the deeper zone, as well as the near shore. And dissolved inorganic nitrogen, which is what the algal cells use to grow, is pretty low at this time and has come down nicely. So in both areas, we're looking really good for having low concentrations of nitrogen. And then the turbidity has also come way down since the winds have kind of subsided a little bit over the past several months. So we've got low nutrient water, clear water, and very low chlorophyll concentrations. So we are in great shape. So this looks worse than it is. This actually is, if you'll notice that the blues are actually a modest bloom risk. So even though it looks like it's covered with blue-green algae, that's actually a modest coverage. And we're not really seeing any bloom potential in the near future. I spoke with our algal expert, Dr. Anna Wachnicka, and she's not seeing any opportunity for really large, expansive blooms in the near future because of that low inorganic nitrogen concentration. The flows have been pretty modest coming into the lake. Once they do start coming in, they'll probably be of low concentration and further dilute the concentration in the lake. So we're looking really good for having a calm summer when it comes to algal blooms. We have had a few areas that are experiencing some bloom conditions, which is greater than 40 micrograms per liter. One of them is called Feb Out. It's over, let's see, it's over here. And it was dominated by an algal called, let's see if I can pronounce it correctly, Phycolyngbia. And it did actually have a toxin hit, but it was for anatoxin, and it was 0.3 micrograms per liter, which is not of issue for drinking water standards. And we've had a few other high concentration areas, but again, pretty mixed bag on who the species are that are there, so it's not a Microcystis bloom covering the lake. These samples were from mid-June. We have since sampled for the end of June, and we haven't gotten the results back yet for those for the concentrations, but we have had a couple of hits for toxins. And one site was the L004, which is kind of sort of in the middle of the lake here. That one had a hit of 0.6 micrograms per liter for microcystin, and the other 4 sites were for a different cylindrospermopsin. All of those were well below the drinking water standards, so not of concern. Good news story here with the wading birds. We had overall a lot of surveys that were well above our 5-year average and even our interquartile range. So we are looking really good for a final wading bird foraging on the lake. And most of the nests at this point have fledged. There's no new nest expected at this point in time. And so we can chalk this up to a fairly successful year for wading birds on the lake. And Mr. Butler, here you go with some pretty pictures. My friends have been sending me them as well. And these are just a few of them. You can see this super clear water. This is a lot of the vegetation that has been growing. So there's Vallisneria on the left. That is commonly known as eelgrass. The middle picture is a mix of Vallisneria, Naiad, and Hydrilla, and then the picture on the right is Kara. So these are all normal expected vegetation species, and the water is looking really good, and we are expecting this to continue as the lake levels slowly ascend. We are cognizant of trying to make sure that we don't get a rapid ascension, because if we do, then we'll lose all of this growth. But it's looking good for us to be able to keep it around for a while. All right, moving on to the estuaries. We are seeing some of the flows from the rainfall coming into this estuary, and you can see that most of that primarily came from the C24, C23, and the tidal basin. And we are also seeing the salinity gradients shift down. We're actually seeing a little bit of fresh water into the two forks in the St. Lucie. And the salinity at the US 1 bridge has started to decline, but we are still very much in the optimum zone for adult oysters in that area. And speaking of oysters, we have oysters, finally. So we've gotten almost 18 spat per shell as of June 11th. So those numbers represent mid-May to mid-June. And this is the highest recruitment rate that we've seen in quite a while, several years. So we're excited to see that. And then this is what the density is looking like out there. So we're also seeing higher densities as we've gone through. I think the lowest densities were 2 years ago. So the oysters are looking good and healthy in the St. Lucie. Seagrass is a more complicated story, and so I wanted to draw your attention to where we are. So the St. Lucie Inlet is one site, and then Willoughby Creek is another. Willoughby Creek has the unfortunate placement of having a lot of wind and wave energy from the channel, and so there's a lot of boat activity, there's a lot of water flow, and so it's a difficult place for seagrass to grow in general because it's of how much energy is in that system. But we do get a lot of seagrass in there, so these little, the smaller bars that are kind of aquamarine, those are our seagrass coverages for that area, and actually these are looking really good. There's a surprising amount of seagrass in that area given the current conditions, so we're pretty excited to see those numbers. And then the St. Lucie Inlet is the green bars, and I wanted to draw your attention to this picture. This is a boat, so that gives you the sense of size of what that seagrass bed looks like. And we are seeing kind of a mixed bag here, but we're encouraged to see some of the growth. We've had a lot of low salinity events that are causing challenge for the seagrass in that area. They like to be above 15. And last year we saw a lot of times when the salinities kind of dropped down. So that made recovery this year a little bit more challenging. So you're seeing a shorter biomass coverage for this year, but as you can also see, the salinities are well above the 15 mark, so we're expecting that we're going to get a really nice recovery in the seagrass towards the end of this year. All right, same side, Caloosahatchee, we're getting some water coming in, and the salinity gradients have shifted down just a bit into the Cape Coral region is where the lower salinities are now. And you can see in the graph on the right that throughout the system, the salinities have dropped just a touch, but they haven't really changed their status, and we're still in the good range at Cape Coral for oysters and in the stressed range at Shell Point and Sanibel. We're also seeing oysters on this side of the world, and these are good recruitment numbers. The 24 numbers are just off the chart, so don't compare to that. But look at the 23 numbers, and we are right in line with where we have been in the past with those. And so we're pretty happy with the numbers that we're getting at both Iona Cove and Bird Island. And then here are the densities, and you can see especially at Iona Cove, we've got some really good density numbers for the live oysters over there. So the oysters in this estuary are looking really good as well. And this is the one story that is kind of not the good news story. This is this seagrass in the Caloosahatchee. So CRE2, which is right here, is furthest upstream. And I'm not showing you data because there are no data. There's no seagrass at that location. That site got hit really hard by Hurricane Ian, and it has not yet recovered. And so we are hearing stories about seagrass in that general area and other locations, but at the site that we monitor, we are not seeing any. For CRE5, you can see that the bars are kind of low. But you can also see how frequently, let's see, the salinities the year prior were well below 15. And so the conditions were variable and very stressful for the dominant seagrass in this area. So they're having a difficult time recovering from, and all of these bars are pre-Ian. So Ian happened in the fall of 22. February 23 was the first time we were able to get out and monitor the sites. So these are all post-Ian numbers that you're seeing here. And so CRE5 is having a difficult time recovering. CRE8 is doing a little better. Salinities have been more consistent in this area, but we are still not having the robust numbers that we have seen in the past. So this whole area is challenged by recovery from Ian. As you know, there was a lot of physical disturbance to the bottom, a lot of debris that came into the area, derelict boats, whatnot, and so there is a challenging conditions in order for the seagrass to respond and recover. But we are seeing some progress at CRE8, and we're looking forward to seeing some improved numbers at the end of the summer.
All right, looking at the southern portion of the system and how sort of water has moved around there, you can see so far to this water year, just less than 120,000 acre feet have made it into the conservation areas over the red line here. Coming out of the conservation area down at the bottom, you can see these flows are starting to pick up with those rains, but it's just less than 50,000 acre feet, with roughly half of it being just within the last month. Again, as that rain started falling over their conservation area directly and started generating those flows and moving out through the structures at the southern end into the L29 canal and into Northeast Shark River Slough, or through the S12 C and D structures. Over on the lower east coast, you can see there's been about 180,000 acre feet so far, with the vast majority of that, about 160,000 acre feet, being down in the Biscayne Bay area and runoff going into the bay itself. So with that, looking at the stormwater treatment areas, their numbers have started to click up a little bit as the rains have come in. You can see they're starting to process some of that basin runoff. Up until now, it had been majorly dominated by lake water moving through the stormwater treatment areas. But we're getting into that wet season where the runoff is starting to generate and move some of that water to be treated through the STAs prior to being discharged down into the Everglades.
All right, as John said, we're starting to see some basin runoff, which is really nice to see. We did have 98,000 acre feet inflow so far this water year, 27.4 thousand acre feet from Lake Okeechobee and the FEBs. And this has resulted in some water quality that is a little elevated, and this is pretty normal during this transitional time as we move from the wet season to the dry season. The water that has been low flow and stagnant is now starting to move, and concentrations tend to be higher in those. So we're expecting that as the flows become a little bit more consistent, that those concentrations will come down. So we're not concerned at this point. And the water depths within the STAs are all pretty much at or slightly above target, except for STA 5-6, which is still fairly dry. That basin is dry in general, and a lot of water is actually now being put into the C-139 basin. FEB, excuse me, and then we'll go into the STAs. So we're expecting as the wet season progresses, those water depths in those STAs will go back up to target. And last month, Mr. Steinley was asked about the A2, and we haven't started operating yet, but I wanted to show you what the A2 is going to look like from the way that my group monitors the system, and then some tools that we will develop for monitoring going forward. So the total A2 STA acreage is 6,500 acres, and each cell will treat about 100,000 acre feet of lake water during the interim operation. The water will go from the Miami Canal over here to S64, go down into this inflow spreader canal into each of the cells, and then flow from east to west over to the collection cell over here, and then down to S649, which will be our compliance point for QBEL. And then we will develop these, what we call WDAT maps, which will monitor the stages for each of the cells for this STA, as well as what we call our dashboard sheet. And what that does is it monitors the total inflows, total outflows, concentrations, percent changes, and it helps keep track of the PLR, and it helps us manage and monitor that STA. So once we start operating that, these are the types of tools that we'll use to keep track of what's going on. And for vegetation planting, cells 1 and 2, the vegetation planting has been completed, and it's partially completed in cell 3. We're in grow-in for that, and they're looking for natural recruitment to complete cell 3, and we will monitor for nuisance species as needed and treat if we need to, but that's where we are with the A2 STA.
So looking at the conservation area themselves, you can see Area 1 here has just been slightly below its regulation schedule. It's had some direct rainfall. There have been some inflows from STA 1 East and 1 West, but for the most part, it's just kind of been bouncing right along just below its regulation schedule and that summer pool. So for right now, this time of year, once we hit into July there, it starts rising up that schedule, and we'll look to be able to allow it to rise and try to limit its outflows to the best we can, but still be able to provide Service Area 1, Eastern Palm Beach County, with its water supply needs. But we'll look to have Area 1 start rising up as we get deeper into the into the wet season. Area 2 has come up significantly from where it was back in the beginning of May. You can see now it's just slightly above its regulation schedule, but it's sitting in a good place right now. We've talked a lot in the past about the slope or the gradient across Area 2, with the higher elevations being up here and lower being down at the bottom. So we'll anticipate it start to rise up in accordance with its schedule, as well as those additional rains start coming, generating some of that runoff, as well as the direct rainfall over the conservation area. Area 3, on the other hand, this time of year we sort of track this green line. That's what we look at to make some operational decisions, and right now it's just bouncing back and forth, being above and below its floor elevation. You've heard me talk in the past couple of months about the accounting or the banking system. For every drop of water that leaves for water supply, then an equal drop has got to come in at the top. So right now, like I said, we're just bouncing back and forth across that line, but we have sufficient quantities in the bank, so to speak, to be able to deliver any water supply that may be needed to service Area 3 down here. But direct rainfall is taking care of the lower East Coast for the most part, so I don't anticipate that being a problem at all. So all of the water that's leaving the conservation area right now is for the environment going down into the Everglades National Park down to the south. South Day Conveyance System has started rebounding as well with some of those range, so there's not that much concern there. But the system is just starting to, fill back up and take advantage of the wet season as we get deeper into it.
So we are seeing some areas that the surface water is starting to come back, but it is still kind of dry throughout. As mentioned earlier, the rains in this area are a little below average. And so we've actually gone in reverse from last month as far as areas that are hydrated, especially in the lower part of the system, Taylor Slough. We have lost the hydrologic connectivity for Taylor Slough and Shark River Slough down there. But other areas are a little bit more hydrated. So Conservation Area 3A is wetter than it was 1 month ago, as is the Big Cypress Basin. So those water levels are very close to surface or just above surface. So as we move forward in the wet season, those areas obviously will rehydrate, but it's still pretty dry down there. And so these are our stage changes as well as our stages throughout the conservation areas. And for this past month, it's kind of a mixed bag on what we've got going on. So we've got some that are having a good recession rate. We've got a few of those in the green. In the yellows, we've got some good recession rates and we've got some good ascension rates. So the ones with the negative numbers are the recession rates, i.e. the water levels are going down. And then we have some that have poor ascension rates, which means they're going up too fast, especially in 3B at the 76 gauge. It went up almost 3/4 of a meter over the past month. So it's a mixed bag of where the water is and what's going on. But if you look at the graph on the right, or the table on the right, excuse me, you'll see that the water depths are all pretty much above surface. And the deepest one is in Water Conservation Area 3A. So that is good for the aquatics in that area. I'm not going to give you a wading bird report this time because the wading bird nesting season has been completed, and we will be getting a report from Dr. Mark Cook shortly as to how we did overall with the wading birds in the conservation areas this year. And lastly, moving down to Florida Bay, the salinities have increased throughout the area due to the loss of that hydrologic connectivity, and we're seeing some areas approaching the hypersalinity region. So for the western region, we're just above the hypersalinity threshold, but we are still within the interquartile range. And then in the Central Bay, we're just below the hypersalinity range, and we're at the very top of the interquartile range. The Eastern Bay, we're still pretty good, but we are concerned that the salinities are rising and looking to get some freshwater flow into the area as soon as possible.
All right. Actually, I'm going to jump back a quick second because there's one thing that I forgot to mention. So late yesterday afternoon, we were informed that there was a fire that broke out right about here in northeast WCA 3A, right adjacent to US 27. So we made some operational changes. We had been pumping the S7 pump station, which is also right in that location, but the S7 discharges into Area 2. So we reduced that pumping and opened up the gravity structure that sits right next to it, S150, that will then allow flow into Area 3A right above where that fire is to hopefully limit its extent and get it extinguished as quick as possible and rehydrate that area. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention when we're talking about some of the drier conditions up in the northern part. But yeah, there was a fire that broke out there, as well as one over here in the Holy Land. So forestry has been responding, and we're in coordination with them if they need any assistance from us from moving some water around. And Drew and I were talking last night, if need be, we have the ability to deploy some temporary assets and some pumping if it will assist in any way possible. So we'll keep you informed as those things develop. But with that, looking out into the future, you'll notice this chart is, or this slide is different from what you're used to seeing. We replaced the little gradation table with an actual pie chart, so hopefully it's a little bit easier to understand and then correlate the colors back and forth between the map and where it falls. But for the most part, all through the month of July, we've got equal chances above, below, or normal rainfall. And then it starts to get a little bit wetter as we get out into the September timeframe in that heart of the hurricane season. And then it'll flip back once we get past the peak of hurricane season back to the equal chances. But the one we always look out farther to is that dry season out there in January, March of 26. And right now the forecast, or the long range forecast, is leaning below average rainfall for the Water Management District. But over the next couple days, we've got a weather pattern that's going to move in Friday and through the weekend over into Monday. But after we get past that, out into Tuesday and beyond next week, we're probably looking at below normal rainfall in the 2-week period. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you both very much. That was a great report, as always. Are there any comments or questions? You got off? Well done. Mr. Bergeron?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I kind of mentioned this at the last meeting. I've been out into 2A, 2B, 3A, north and south. This is the first time in a long time that I've seen these areas be able to dry up and aerate. And as we all well know, in order to have a healthy wetland, you got to have a wet season and a dry season. So I think it's important to point out that at this particular point, the environment, especially in the Central Everglades, and I think Everglades National Park as well, is benefiting to have this cleansing. I haven't seen those areas dry in quite some time. Now, obviously, that's different than water supply, that because the Everglades is so important to our water supply too. So as long as the rains start coming, I think we're getting a huge benefit. Even in Lake Okeechobee, you know, 1/3 of the lake is wetlands having a chance to cleanse themselves. So I think it's important for the public to understand that the balance we have, and it's a very sensitive balance, is obviously water supply and managing water levels compatible with the environment. And I think as long as the rains start coming here shortly, we're able to have water supply and a very healthy environment. So, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Any other further comment? It looks like pinch hitting for Ms. Heater is Ms. Smith.
Good morning, Chair and Governing Board members. I think this might be the only time I can recall doing a financial report in the AM, so this is pretty exciting. The monthly financial statement posted on the district's website is through the month of May of 2025. We've collected a total of $910 million in new revenue through the month of May and expended $781 million. Comparing May of 2025 to last May of 2024, we've collected $175 million, or 25% more in revenue, and expended $149 million, or 25% more in expenditures. During the month of May, we collected $51 million and expended $136 million. 93% of that was expended on restoration and O&M, 3% or $4 million on science and monitoring, 3% or $4 million on management, administration, and outreach, and 1% on regulation. The $910 million in revenue collections is mainly comprised of $502 million from state appropriated funds for Everglades restoration, where we are on average spending $40 to $65 million a month. $364 million of the revenue collections from ad valorem. The remaining $44 million is from investment earnings, license, permit fees, leases, sale district property, et cetera. We've expended and obligated 62.8% of the budget, and we are spending on average $98 million per month. Last May, we were spending on average $79 million per month, so it's an increase of roughly $29 million per month. The good news is that our collections of revenues has increased from last year by $22 million per month. That is all that I have for you.
Thanks, Ms. Smith. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Nope, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move now to our final general public comment.
We have none, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm not without words, but I'm close to. But I probably am, though, when it comes to final
We
board
did
comment.
just get a hand raised.
Did you see a hand raised?
Yes.
Please.
We'll hear from Mr. Olson on Zoom.
Hey, good morning. Can you guys hear me okay?
We hear you.
I didn't realize that you were rushing through so quickly. I just had to put my hand up. Recently, I've heard WERP in the public narrative once again because the Jetport is in the footprint. Specifically, it's in Region 4 of WERP, but as WERP was authorized, Region 4 cannot be completed until Region 3 is, and Region 3 cannot be completed until Region 2 is. Region 2, as you guys are aware, is federally authorized, was quite an unmitigated disaster, so much so that the governing board and staff both pushed to move forward with a state-led alternative. I just want to state that I find it imperative the public needs to know that WERP, as federally authorized, still floods out more than 30,000 acres of critical endangered species habitat. On Olson Ranch last year, we recorded 7 different panthers across 100 videos. This year, we're up to 3 or 4 unique panthers so far, and it's July. Most of our activity on trail cam comes in August or September. The state-led replacement plan will have to occur before WERP can be finalized in the region south of us, but Water Management's the only agency, state or federal, which even acknowledges these concerns. The periodic SERP update is modeling the federal plan. Fish and Wildlife Service won't even acknowledge panthers in the footprint. With the change to the Endangered Species Act rules coming, we're setting up the destruction of their habitat from the improperly federal authorization. And the governing board and staff are the only bulwark we have at the moment. I just want to say that I greatly appreciate the protection of my family's land, my neighbors' lands, and all of our teeming wildlife, which you have given us last year. I look forward to the updated modeling for the state-led alternative, but it's really causing me concern. I don't understand why every other agency refuses to speak up an acknowledgement and support of this required massive deviation from the federal plan. The public is being left confused and left out, thinking that we're just going to steamroll WERP. So I'm grateful that you're working with us, but I hope you continue to push the state-led alternative publicly and loudly. I hope the landowners in Region 2 continue to be included in the process by Water Management. Federally, it seems like we're being locked out beyond our 3-minute speeches. And as you guys are all aware, 3 minutes is not enough to get into the weeds on multi-billion-dollar projects. We have a long way to go, but I think working with the stakeholders that have been previously left out will really speed up the process. Since she was mentioned, I just want to point out, it's no surprise Ms. Estenos wound up back at the Everglades Foundation. I had a FOIA request last year for her communications, and I was told by federal staff that she deliberately withheld them because she was improperly communicating with the Everglades Foundation to rush WERP through WRDA 24. And while I'm unable to confirm what I've been told last year, because I still have not had production on that FOIA request, I'm still actively exploring avenues to remedy that. The public will find out what happened behind closed doors. But I just want to say, if the information is true that I had heard, it would line up with Ms. Estenos' 2011 FOIA request, which showed the same collusions between her and the Everglades Foundation when she was head of the OERI. So thank you, staff, for the protections you gave. I'm going to continue digging in to figure out how we got here, but I'm also going to actively work with you to better it. And I greatly appreciate you guys being the only sensible foundational agency in this project. Thank you again.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Chairman, that concludes public comment.
Great, thanks for your comment. We'll go now to a final board comment. Mr. Butler?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colonel Roman?
Yes, just a couple of brief items. One is, Drew, I want to give you a shout out and thank you for the great work you and your entire team did on the budget and bringing that in for a landing. And I look forward to seeing everyone at the C-43 ribbon cutting. It's going to be a great day. Thank you.
Well, John says it's not going to rain. Mr. Hurley?
I don't have any comment.
Thank you. Mr. Bergeron?
I'll be brief, Mr. Chairman, but just want to say again, our prayers are out for the families in Texas. And just want to say it's a great honor to serve with my fellow board members and serve the stakeholders. As I said earlier, I think this dry season has had some benefits to the environment with concerns to water supply. I'd like to thank Drew and our staff for their detailed critical path schedule of 24 items that have to be looked at down at the trail in order to get the benefit of when the road is completed March of next year and be able to move water south. Our staff has done a fabulous job in coordinating 4 state agencies and 4 federal agencies, all 8 of them having certain things that have to be done to get the benefit of the road and the benefit of the bridges. And I'm just so proud of our staff to put this together. We're meeting every month on Zoom. We will continue to do that. I won't get into the details. Of course, the Cape Sable Sparrow, I want to thank U.S. Fish and Wildlife moving forward, the captive breeding, and obviously being able to move water south, stop the cumulative backups in the Central Everglades and the Big Cypress, and benefit Everglades National Park. We're going to reach this goal within the next 2 years. We're going to get huge benefits on projects that we started 25 years ago. And I'm very excited, and I just want to compliment our staff for leading the charge and coordinating, and long live the Everglades.
Thanks, Mr. Bergeron. Mr. Martinez?
None, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Mr. Spotswood?
None for me, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Mr. Spotswood. Mr. Steinle?
I have none, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steinle. I'll just close by reiterating everything that's been said, which is thanks to staff. It is wet season. I know how hard everyone works during wet season. I know how hard you work during dry season too, but this is where our bread and butter is as far as flood control. So thank you for all those who you're putting in the extra hours, keeping us safe, and thank you all for working on the parallel process of Everglades restoration and making that happen as well, and keeping the forward progress. I know it's not easy. You all are doing an incredible job, and I thank you for that. We'll see you back here next month on Thursday, August 14th at 9 o'clock, and this meeting's adjourned. Thanks.